A year ago, she walked off down a mountain highway and disappeared. Last week, a hiker in the New Mexico high desert found her, and lying in the dirt beside her, a handgun. In an area search teams had already combed top to bottom and come up with nothing. Her name is back in the news this week, and so is the question nobody can answer. I'm Carol Ann. Welcome to the InBetween. So, the medical examiner's office finally put a name to those remains. Melissa Casias. And if you were with us a few episodes back, you know that name. You know exactly where you heard it, because Melissa Casias is a name on a list. A list of more than a dozen Americans, every one of them tied to the country's most sensitive work. Nuclear weapons, rocket engines, the programs nobody gets to talk about at dinner. Some of them turned up dead. Some of them just walked out their own front doors and were never seen again. And the people in charge keep treating each one as its own little tragedy, sealed off from all the others. Quick refresher, because we walked through all of this in the full episode. Melissa was 53, an administrative assistant at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And before you file that word administrative under nothing to see here, remember where she worked. She badged into one of the most secure nuclear facilities in the country every single day. Last June, she dropped her husband at the lab, ran lunch out to her daughter in Taos, and then she was gone. Last seen on foot, walking alone down a road, caught on a neighbor's camera. She left everything behind, her car, her wallet, both of her phones. And both of them had been wiped clean, factory reset. There's more. The badge that didn't add up, the timeline, all of it, and it's all in the original Missing Scientist video linked down in the description. We're here now for what came next. 11 months later, on the 28th of May, a hiker finds her remains out in the Carson National Forest, a handgun in the dirt beside her. And in their own statement, her family says she was found in an area that had already been searched. And here's a small thing that just keeps nagging at me. The state police placed the body in the McGaffrey Ridge area. The family statement placed her in Rio Chiquito. Reporters up in Taos caught it and pointed out that the police still haven't said out loud exactly where on that mountain she turned up. Maybe that's nothing, loose wording in a press release, but when a woman disappears off a list like this one and turns up in country that crews had supposedly already walked, you'd think the one fact everyone could agree on is where. The medical examiner hasn't ruled on a cause of death, hasn't ruled on a manner of death. As I sit here, officially, nobody knows what happened to Melissa Casias. So naturally, the coverage came. And one piece of it is the reason we are making this update at all. Over on the Law and Crime channel, Jesse Weber ran a segment on the case. And credit where it's due. Jesse asked some good questions, sharp ones, the kind you want the host asking. He pushed on the gun. He went after those wiped phones. He even put it right out in the open that somebody could have staged the scene. His guest was a private investigator named Ashton Pack. And from very early in that conversation, before the medical examiner has said one single word about how Melissa died, Mr. Pack had already made up his mind. He had what he called a bad feeling that this young lady chose to take her own life. Okay, people have instincts. That's allowed. But watch what happens every time one of those inconvenient details comes up, because the instinct just hardens into a wall. The body was found in an area already searched. So how does a search miss her? Well, according to Mr. Pack, you know how it is out there in the high desert.
Animals, coyotes, mountain lions, the kind of the cleaning system of our, the forests and the deserts, that could have changed the location of her body.
So the coyotes moved her. Got it. One small question though. The handgun. The one lying right there beside her remains. Did the coyotes carry that along too? Drag a pistol across the desert and set it down nice and neat next to her? A heavy chunk of steel stays exactly where it drops. If wildlife scattered her to some brand new spot, the gun doesn't travel with her. And if the gun's right there with her, then she was right there the whole time, in the patch of ground they swear they already searched. Either way, the story falls apart. Then there are the phones. Both of them factory reset. Why would a woman about to end her own life stop to wipe her phones? Mr. Pax got an answer ready for that one too.
Maybe she's thinking like, I want to make it as easy for my husband to pick up the pieces as it can be. So I'm not going to do this at home. I'm going to reset the phone so that they can be kind of, maybe resold or just refurbished and get, that she's kind of erasing herself in a way.
Resold. A woman in the last hours of her life, by his own theory, is pausing to think about the resale value of a used cell phone. Sure, that tracks. And when the footage of her walking down that highway comes up, his read of it is that she was just having a bad day. Now, I want to be fair to the guy. There's no evidence he's lying, and there's no evidence he's part of anything. A lot of folks online jump straight to paid off and cover up. We've got nothing to support that, so we're leaving it right where it sits. The thing worth pointing at is plainer than all of that, and it's sitting right there on the tape. Every single time the evidence pointed somewhere strange, he reached for the most ordinary patch he could find and pressed it down hard. He even waved the magic words, Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one, and it usually is. But you only get to call an explanation the simple one after the medical examiner tells you what killed her. Calling it before that is just picking your ending early and trimming the case until it fits. It's called framing, and it seems obvious this guy was trying to hammer into the viewer's minds a specific narrative. Now, before anyone decides this is one guy on one show, flip the channel. Over on News Nation, Chris Cuomo ran his own panel on Melissa. 2 guests, and they couldn't have been pulling in more opposite directions if they tried. On one side, Morgan Wright, veteran investigator, runs a center for unsolved cases. And he opened more or less by reminding everybody how long he's been doing this. 40 years, framing his authority. Then he went to the numbers. National missing persons rates. How many people you'd statistically expect to vanish from a region that size over a couple of years. Basically saying, there's nothing to see here. And then he waved the whole security angle off. Called her, just an administrative assistant. Just an administrative assistant. That's the polite modern word for secretary. And the word secretary comes from secret. It always has. The secretary is the one you trust with what never makes it into the memo. Who's on the calendar and who quietly got taken off. Who came in the side door and who never showed at all. And you don't need a security clearance for any of that. Her own family's been clear that she didn't have a high one. And good, we should say so out loud. But the person sitting at the desk outside a sensitive office is still one of the most trusted people in the building. She knows how the day really runs before anybody else does. It's her job to notice the details. So no, not just anything. Cuomo even framed it that way himself, casting Wright as the calm, cool saucer sitting under a very hot cup of speculation. And Wright played the part, steady, reasonable, and very, very invested in making you feel a little bit foolish for noticing a pattern at all. On the other side, Lauren Conlon, an investigative journalist who hosts a true crime show called Primetime Crime. And she came in from the exact opposite end. She pulled up a Facebook post from Melissa's husband from just after Melissa disappeared. In 2009, 2010, we faced the hardest times in our lives, but with you by my side, we made it through together. What we face this time is all fixable. I believe you have help, but for how long? Lauren lingered on this last line. I believe you have help, but for how long? That, she said, stuck with her. And I can see why. It's a pretty odd statement for him to make. But then, Lauren started widening the lens. Quickly. From Los Alamos to a missing NASA scientist named Monica Reza, to the FBI, to the White House, to the UFO files. Name after name, agency after agency, until you're standing under one enormous connected shadow and you haven't had 2 seconds to thoroughly check a single piece of it. 2 guests. One of them sands every strange detail down until it disappears into a sad, ordinary story. The other piles every strange detail into one giant cover-up that reaches all the way to the stars. And both of them are running the very same play from opposite ends of the field. Both of them walked into that studio already knowing the answer. And that's the whole trap. The real situation is the one neither of those frames will hold still long enough to admit. Because Melissa is one of more than a dozen. A retired Los Alamos man who walked out his front door and left his wallet and keys on the table. A NASA scientist who vanished off a trail she'd hiked for years. A weapons contractor last seen on foot carrying a gun, leaving everything else behind. A physicist shot dead on his own porch. And the big one, a retired Air Force general who once ran the research lab at Wright-Patterson, gone from his home since February. In the last update, we added a 12th, a young NASA engineer named Josh LeBlanc, found dead in a car fire weeks after the program he led was quietly canceled. We walked through every one of them in the original, so I won't rerun the whole roster here, but they all leave the same way. Look at how these tend to go. They leave on foot. They leave behind the phone, the watch, the wallet, the car, every single thing that could tell another living soul where they went. The House Oversight Committee has been asking questions. The FBI says it's looking into connections. The White House says it's paying attention. And the real answers keep right on not arriving. So when Melissa turns up in a forest they already searched, with a wiped phone sitting at home and a gun in the dirt next to her, and a man on television tells you the coyotes did the rearranging and she was fretting over resale value, you're allowed to say it out loud. Wait, that doesn't add up. So, the honest answer? I don't know what happened to Melissa Casias. I want to be straight with you about that. Maybe the medical examiner comes back and it really is the most heartbreaking, ordinary thing in the world, and a family gets the worst kind of closure there is. That happens. Happens a lot. And it deserves to be handled with care and not turned into a circus. But maybe it's something else. And the thing that should bother every one of us, no matter which way this lands, is the line of people on television ready to tell you they already know. The ones smoothing every rough edge flat. And the ones stacking every rough edge into a pyramid pointing at the sky. Both of them want you to quit looking and start believing. The medical examiner hasn't even finished the work. The only honest position anybody has right now is a question mark. That question mark is uncomfortable. It should be. The real ones usually are. We're going to keep watching this one. If the medical examiner rules, you'll hear about it here. And if another name gets added to that list, and I truly hope it doesn't, I'll be right back in this chair to walk through it with you. But one more thing before I go, and it ties right to everything that we've been talking about. A lot of you wrote in last time to say that the number you're hearing out there is bigger than ours. 17, some of you said. And we can stand behind 12. 12 is where the thread holds when you pull on it. We went looking at the extra names, and a few might pan out. We're still digging, but some of them just don't connect. The link is so thin you can see daylight through it. Somebody died. They once had a job that sounds science adjacent, and that was enough to staple them onto the list. And I get why that happens. 12 is a story. 17 is a bigger story. There's always a pull to round up because a scarier number holds you a few seconds longer. But accuracy matters more than clicks. Truth matters. There's plenty of real mystery in this without inventing more. Through all of this, my heart is with Melissa's family, with her husband, with her daughter she brought lunch to on the last afternoon anyone saw her alive. They're the ones who have to live inside that question mark, whether they ever wanted to or not. And if you're new here and you want the rest of this story, the full list, the names we only brushed past today, the general who vanished in February, and the chain that ties every one of them back to the same small handful of programs, it's all waiting for you. Just click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.